Thank you for coming to our spring eTeaching Luncheon, and I'm happy to announce that today's event is actually sponsored by iClickers. So Brenda Brognier is here. She'll be here as a resource. So if you have questions after our presenters, she's here to answer any questions that you may have about iClickers. So on your tables, you'll find some packets about iClicker and also actual iClickers, which Karen and Othelia will be using during their presentation. I also wanted to make one announcement around our eTeaching Day, which will be May 13th. If you haven't already registered, I highly encourage you to sign up. It's a fun day. We've got some fabulous morning presenters. Julie Little from Eli will be our keynote presenter. We'll also be doing our Teaching with New Media Award ceremony, and then we have some really helpful afternoon workshops, and iClicker is one of them. So to register, you just go to bc.edu/eTeaching day. So I'm going to turn over to Richard Jensen, who is one of the faculty moderators in the FMRC, to introduce our speakers.
Good afternoon. Enjoy your lunch. I'm Richard Jensen, a faculty member in the mathematics department, also a moderator at the Faculty Microcomputer Resource Center, basement of Gasson Hall, scenic garden level as we call it. I have done a little bit of background on our speakers this afternoon. Karen Arnold has just come back from Milan, where she had a Fulbright, right?
Kayser.
Kayser?
Yeah.
Karen Kayser.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, I looked at you and I said, Arnold. I'm sorry, it was Karen Kayser. Forgive me, something must have happened.
Milan was right.
Milan was right. She's in charge of a groundbreaking program called Partners in Coping for couples that are enduring breast cancer adventure. Othelia Lee promotes student learning on diversity issues, and she's written on the role of spirituality in the subjective well-being of rural elders. So you get the idea. I learned urban and rural elders, and I found out that Othelia was born on the summer solstice. Both of these ladies. Very good. Both of these speakers from the Graduate School of Social Work use clickers in their classrooms for the purpose of increasing student participation. Karen, you were speaking first?
Yeah.
Karen Kayser, thank you very much.
I have some handouts here, so if Thank you, Richard, for that introduction, although you got my name on it. Okay. So we entitled this iClickers Enhancing Classroom Participation, but I found through the use of iClickers you do more than enhance classroom participation, and I'll tell you, and Othelia and I both will tell you what things you can do with iClickers. And I want to start with the motto behind every great university is great eTeaching. I really have, over the years, appreciated the support that I've received from eTeaching services here at the university. And I think it was Tip O'Neill who said this, the librarians should get this. It's a joke. He said, behind every great university is great libraries, and it's on all the library material. Yeah, see, the librarians know that. So, okay. I want to start with just doing a little demonstration of how you use the clicker. So if you want to pick up the clicker that's near you on the table and turn it on, the bottom of the button turns it on. And you will see there's an A, B, C, D, E choice there. All you have to do is, as soon as I start it here, is press one of those choices. And you have a choice there of, well, the question is, how often do you use iClickers in classroom teaching per semester? A, never. B, 1 to 6 class sessions. C, 7 to 12. D, every class session. So think about it and press your choice. There's no right or wrong answer, and also we don't know who said what, so it's not, the particular clicker is not registered to any particular person. Okay. And when everybody has finished, you should have, I think there's a light that turns on once you, no?
When you push the button, it turns green.
Okay, yeah, when you push the button.
But then when you release it, it turns back.
It's got to, okay, great. So then you know if your vote has been registered.
Does the light go off after?
Yes. Okay, so let's stop. If everybody's had a chance to do that and display. Okay, so most of you have never used it, and just 3 have used it 1 of 6 times. Okay. Moving on to the next question. How do you primarily evaluate your students' learning? Quizzes or tests, papers, projects, combination of the above? Hold on a second, I gotta press up. Okay. And maybe if you don't teach, you can press an E or never. I guess I should have put that one there.
Does that number 17 represent the number of responses that it's?
Yes.
Well,
Yes. And the other is how much time it's taking people. So according to this, there are a couple more that need to respond, but say
When you press it more than once, does it count more than once? Or
No,
just once?
no.
One per clicker?
Yeah.
And it remembers the last response,
Right.
the last click.
Okay, so in response to that question, D, a combination of things are used to evaluate students' learning by most of you, almost 2/3. And then the next question. My students are primarily undergraduates, graduate, master's level, PhD level, or mixed. And it's a pretty mixed result here. A quarter undergrads, 35% graduate at the master's level, 10% at the PhD, and then a mixture, or a quarter, and then one not. And then finally, I teach primarily using lectures, class discussions, AP materials, combination of both, of above.
And it's the last one you press?
Yes.
I think someone asked a question about if you select an answer and then it registers the answer, then you want to go back and change it. You can still change it, but you can't change it once she stops the polling.
Okay, so most of you teach using a combination of pedagogy, lectures, class discussions, AV materials, and so on. Okay, what department do you teach in? And we have undergraduate, College of Arts and Sciences graduate, professional school, or instructional technology. You teach the faculty.
We did a category for librarians.
Yeah, for a library. I guess I was thinking librarians fall under D. So. So, half of you teach in professional schools. Okay. So I want to start with telling a little about how I got into the iClickers, because when I attended one of these workshops a number of years ago, I thought, oh, these are fun to do, but I'm not quite sure how I can use it in my teaching at that time, and I was thinking it might be used more for surveys and things of that sort. And then last fall, I was presented with an opportunity to use them when one of the instructors of a course that I teach said, I don't want to do the midterm online anymore. I had put it on Blackboard Vista, and he wasn't a big technology person, and he hated the idea of the students having to go online, and he had to go online, and so on. So I said, okay, so we won't do the midterm online, but I need to have some way to evaluate and assess whether my students are reading the materials and understanding the concepts. And so we decided to change the midterm exam to a paper. But I then was thinking, well, how can I assess them unless I have them, make sure they discuss the readings in class and so on. But then I thought, well, maybe by using the iClickers, I could put up questions about the concepts and the things that were covered in the previous week's readings and see if they're getting it. And it would be anonymous. I wouldn't have the clickers registered to them, so we would see as a whole how the class was understanding the material. But the first session that I did with this class was just what I had done with you, and that is get to know who was in the class. And again, this is kind of an anonymous way and a quick and easy way to get to know something about the students in your class. So I'm going to give you an example of some of the questions that I asked that were similar to the ones that I just asked you to get to know you, using the case example of my family therapy class. And the structure of this class is typically I do a brief lecture covering some of the theories and concepts of that we were covering that day, a demonstration either using video or DVD or live role play, and then we do lab assignments because the textbook I use also has an online website that they can go and do lab assignments and email them to me. Okay, so these are some of the questions that I asked them, and let's see, get that little guy out of there. I wanted to know, what their level of experience was in terms of working with families, and they're second-year students, so they had a first-year placement, and I asked them, how many families did you work with? And actually, in the last sheet, the last page of your handout, I have a printout of the responses that I got, because every time you ask a question and they register their response, it automatically sends a little report or summary of that to a folder on your desktop, so you can go back and look and read what the responses were. In this particular one, I know the printout that I produced there is kind of hard to read because it was in color, but what I recall, about a quarter of the students were in each one of those. A quarter said they had no families, quarter said 1 to 3, and then so on down. It was kind of spread out in terms of their experience. I asked them how many years of work experience did they have between undergraduate and graduate school. These are the number of years. Their age, which is a little tricky because years ago when I first started teaching, the average age of our graduate student was around 30, in the low 30s. Now it's in the 20s, and it was again about a third or so age, 20 to 24, and about a third, 25 to 29. Most of them were all in their 20s, and there was only one who was over 40 and one in the 35 to 39. So I may want to change my distribution in my next class because, I always have to think too, well, if you're the only one in that last category, maybe you wouldn't want people to, know that. So, but, I try to keep it low, like I didn't put 50 or 60 numbers. But it is interesting just to get a sense of like the experience and the age of your class. And then I asked them questions regarding their own experience, personal experience with families and what kind of family they grew up in. And again, I found that about half of them were in nuclear families and the rest were in these other categories. So again, that's something that I think that has changed over the years. Okay, so that's just to get to know your class while you can use the iClickers. The second purpose was to present basic information and to dispel some popular myths and misconceptions. And what I did here was the first part of each class session for about 20 to 30 minutes when I would normally just stand there and go through PowerPoint slides and cover the concepts and so on. What I ended up doing was just presenting some information, some questions, and having them respond, and then I would talk about whatever that question pertained to. In the beginning, I had trouble integrating kind of my lecture with the iClicker questions. I tended to start with, okay, I'll ask these iClicker questions, and then go into my lecture. I got to the point, though, after a while where I could actually incorporate the stuff that I would normally say in my lecture with the questions. It takes a little, just takes a little time in figuring out how you want to, what you want to communicate, and then what question you would ask to help elicit that information. These are questions that I asked during the first session because, the first session the students haven't read anything, typically they haven't read anything in the textbook, it's your first session. So I wanted to just start with telling them a little about the state of families in America and the demographic characteristics, values, and so on, some of the research on that. So I just threw up some of these questions about the demographics, the percentage of married couple households with or without children in the U.S. is, and that's about 50%. Then I would, I talk a little about the distribution and the sizes of the households that you can see here that I was talking about. Married couples here make up about 51%. The significant thing is that back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, it was much higher, that the families are getting smaller. And a similar type of question is just what's the average size of households, and the correct answer here is 2.6 persons. And here's another graphic illustration of the data showing that in 2000 it was about 2.59 was the size of households, and so we talked about how the size of families have changed, even though people keep on building bigger houses, which I never could figure out. The size of our families are actually getting smaller. And then, I mentioned early on that slide that another is just dispelling misconceptions and myths. And this is kind of like one of these questions regarding the divorce rate. Everybody thinks, the divorce rate just keeps on rising, but the answer here is false. It doesn't. It's actually going down a little. So then we talk about that thing. And when I have them answer these, like this particular question was about 50-50. 50 said that it was going up and 50 said it was going down. So it gives you an idea of like what people are picking up maybe in the popular culture or magazines or whatever, and what things you need to dispel in terms of your material. And this is just a graph showing the divorce rate. I also talked about a longitudinal study that had been done on families and family values. It started, it's been going on for about, I think, around 40 years now. And so, I asked some questions around values like this one, the baby boomers are more individualistic than their parents' generation, because it breaks it up in like 3 generations, true or false. And usually people say, well, the baby boomers are so individualistic, they're more than their parents. But in actuality, and this graph kind of illustrates it, is that what you need to do is compare generations at the same time period, at cohort. So what you find is if you compare like the baby boomers when they were, let me see, 1990, this isn't, my pointer isn't working there, but if you compare baby boomers and their parents, like when the baby boomers are middle-aged and when their parents were middle-aged, you find that actually the parents were more individualistic. I think that's the way it goes. Or no, yeah, the parents were more individualistic. So you have to compare it at the time. Same with like when they're 17 or 18 years old, when they're teenagers. I mean, that's a time when everybody is, that age group is more individualistic than their parents, so, yeah.
So what you do is before you bring this up, you have them click the iClickers?
Yes.
Why not just have them show of hands?
Okay, this, because basically, and when we get to later sessions where they're having to read materials and so on, and come to class prepared, by having the clickers, everybody is participating. Everybody is giving their opinion and answering the question. What I find is like when you don't have the iClickers yet, you have maybe the same 1 or 2 people raising their hands, or people don't want to participate because they're afraid, well, maybe I don't have the right answer. It's really just a thing to kind of engage.
They won't remain quiet for long in my class.
So,
They can also answer anonymously with the clicker, but they can't when they raise their hand.
yeah.
It's-
See, there's some
But
that,
you see, I think anonymity is oversold.
okay. Okay, well, I think Othelia is going to address that in a minute with some of the questions that she asked, because she teaches a course in diversity where the questions can be very sensitive, and so that's where the anonymity comes in. Okay. Okay, so I mentioned this. Purpose 3 is to assess their outside reading and understanding concepts. So then it comes to the point where I am looking at, are they understanding the concepts? Are they getting the concepts and doing the reading that they're supposed to be doing? So, we study different theories in family therapy, and one is called structural therapy. So I might throw up a question around structural therapy's attempt to alter the family's view of reality by, and then give them these choices. Now, some of these questions I actually took from the test bank of the textbook. Remember I said earlier that, my colleagues no longer wanted to do the midterm exam, so these are some of the same questions that we would use on the midterm. And so here's another one, about the types of interventions you would use in structural therapy. This one's kind of an interesting one because on the midterm exam, when I gave it like the previous year, almost everybody got this wrong. So I stuck this one in because students are easily taken by, oh, it can't be number D, but the answer actually is number D. And they think it's the first one, when technically it's not. Unbalancing occurs within a subsystem, not between subsystems. So they often get this one wrong. Okay, this was a session I had on blended families, step families. We start out talking about the Brady Bunch. I won't play you the little tape on that because all the students except one in my class were familiar with the Brady Bunch. The one that grew up in South America, and apparently they didn't have it there. So then, I asked some questions about, how many, what's the percentage of people who divorce, who eventually remarry, and that. answer is 85%, but then of those who remarry, how many get divorced again? And it's like 50 to 60%. The divorce rate is actually higher with the second divorce. And then this one always kind of surprises people that children experience 2 or more divorces before 16 years old. It's 1 out of 10. That's unbelievable, isn't it? So then we talk about characteristics of blended families. And I have this question. It's not, it's not multiple choice, but you can put some of these questions, intermix it, with the multiple choice ones. What are 2 characteristics of the Brady Bunch that are not representative of most step families? And you may know this. One is that both parents have been widowed. In most blended families, they come from divorced families. And the second is that they had Alice, the housekeeper, who could resolve any problem within the 20 minutes of the show. Okay, and then I throw in a trivia question, and they all of them got this right. Who's an architect? Okay, so at this point I'm going to turn it over to Othelia, and she'll tell you a little more of the different ways that she uses iClickers.
I think I need to also endorse the quotation by Kipper O'Neill that, and really want to appreciate the great support and services I have received from the eTeaching Center and also the librarians. So I think social worker, librarian, instructor, designer, all have kindreds. I also went to that presentation that Karen was mentioning. It was about the very innovative use of iClicker. I was very intrigued, but I thought that was more relevant for large classes in the undergrad, and I didn't really see the relevance in the professional school, particularly when you deal with more smaller group of people and also you need to do more discussion. And then also another reason I was hesitant initially was also personal. I'm considered to be legally blind, so I have a lot of problem with serious reader impairment, so it's hard to kind of maneuver this kind of thing. So I was, and then, I happened to be there by luck that, when Sarah was, showing Karen about this iClickers, and it looks, Sarah presented it in a way, it's very manageable. So then I thought, why don't I try this? And I think probably the main reason also I use it is to help them to read the material, which is I think we are all struggling with. But also in my case, because of the course I'm teaching, I guess research and human behavior and social environment, that's kind of our acronym HBSE, that's the theory course. That's where you can use it in the traditional sense. But in the diversity also, I need to think about ways how I can facilitate the discussion. So this is more typical example that I use in the human behavior and social environment course about teaching about the Piaget. So they have a course book reading about all this different kind of reasoning. So then we could probably I can present it as a quiz question so they can answer it. So the answer is an egocentric reasoning in this case. And then I guess in the diversity class, when you talk about this word oppression, you have this dead silence, and people are very hesitant to talk about it. I mean, before I used the iClicker, I used to kind of lecture about it, the definition of oppression. And then, I came up with this idea, and because one of the things our also students are struggling with, most of them also particularly growing up in a white upper middle class environment. And then, they got a placement in Boston Public School, or they got to work with this very emotionally disturbed adolescents in Dorchester and Jamaica Plains. And oftentimes they find out I'm the only white person in the room, or it's very kind of puzzling to them to deal with this overwhelming situation. So people feel oppressed, and then we talk about, is that really qualify the definition of oppression? At the end of the day, you can go back to your environment and you feel okay about it. So then we can have a discussion about oppression does not necessarily mean personal discomfort, anxiety, and uneasiness. So I think in that sense, by using iClicker, it facilitated my dialogue in that sense. And then, I am also teaching about this, different forms of oppression, the things that we're familiar with, like racism, sexism, heterosexism, ageism, classism, ableism, and also, the forms, the oppression based on religion, language, and citizenship, which we don't really have a word for it. So, here, I am teaching is also, agent and target. So the people who are in the inner circle are the agent, who are the oppressor, and then also people who are outer circle, that's the target, who are oppressed. But then, also this diversity wheel can be used as, the way we can assess the socio-demographic profiles of the students, the way, Karen described. But then, I have to encounter the situation because we have a very homogeneous group. So sometimes you have only person who are over 40 in the classroom, or only gay or lesbian person, or only person of color in the classroom. So I hesitate not to use that. The way I also use it, though, is, because we do the introduction, and I want them to kind of remember who the classmates are. So I would probably use some kind of this trivia question, like, for because after the introduction, how much they remember about their classmates. So, who is here for the, second Eagle, so meaning who went to BC High School or BC as an undergrad, so they can kind of recognize each other and, kind of build more, cohesive relationship in this way. But then, I think I keep going back on this. I'm not really used to this computer, so let's see. Yes. And then, this one is about that, that concept of horizontal and vertical oppression. There was an article recently in the Globe about this 11-year-old boy who committed suicide because of the peer pressure. And so, we are kind of more, in tune to this vertical oppression that is, agent to target oppression. So that's white to black or, male to female kind of oppression. But there are also other kinds of various forms of oppression. So, that kind of also, when I, rather than just talking about and lecture about it, I would pose this question and have them to identify what kind of forms of oppression. So here that's the agent to agent horizontal oppression. So that, kind of facilitate more dialogue in the classroom. And then also, same thing goes for the levels of oppression. So, whether it's an individual, institutional, organizational, and cultural level. So again, I'm asking this question and have them to identify. So in a way, rather than, just to, forcing it, I guess, because you kind of see it also visually, I think it helps some students to externalize the problem. So, you can kind of, more approach it more in the, in the intellectual basis so that they can more participate in the class discussion. So here, it's a cultural levels of oppression that, the European language, culture is pretty well. And I think maybe we can actually do all of this. Another, concept I am struggling with is to teach them about the social construction of race. And also, the person, who would not grow up in this culture, I had a really hard time personally to understand the social construction of race. And also, if you don't really have much of the personal experience, this is a difficult concept to kind of grasp. And it's more easy to intellectualize it. So this slide I created in collaboration with my students. I think particularly when we have the, in last fall, when we have, presidential candidate or biracial, I think students were very intrigued about this idea about it's a multi-race and to what extent can you see just by, just looking at people. So, we thought that, maybe using the image that could be very powerful and it's better than 1,000 words. So, can I maybe I think we can probably do this. Could you guess what's his race? So you can probably start using it. How many people in the room? About 20. Display. So I think you got the idea. This is because I give you a hint about multi-race. But oh, no.
You can also build into the settings, if you want to show them the answer, you can build that into
Yes.
the settings so
Yes.
that you click on a button and it shows the answer.
So, Colin Powell, we know him as the first African-American state Secretary of the States, but actually his father, his parents were Jamaican immigrants, and also he has some Scottish and other, mixture of European ancestry, so has a lot of African-American duo in this country. So what about this, Mariah Carey?
You didn't stop the, I don't think you stopped the last one. Okay.
I wouldn't do this, but you got the idea about, Mariah Carey has an Irish mother and also an Afro-Venezuelan father. And there was actually an incident that a racist neighbor tried to poison their family dog. So, and then, this is a tricky one. So you see this white boy, but and then this woman. The answer is the same. This African boy has albino, which is a kind of skin disease that makes his skin white, and also Shnita Taron is an actress, and she her first language is, she's from South Africa, so first language is Afrikaan, and then English is her second language. And then, I would probably also throw questions like this, who has Asian ancestry, and it's easy to identify Michelle Rhee, who is a, DC public school chancellor. She's obviously Asian. But then also, Tiger Woods has an Asian mother, so does Johnny Damon, and then this guy, Fujimori, is a ferocious dictator. He's a former president of Peru, so he's a Japanese Peruvian. So. And then, this is more traditional use. I would also, do it in the research class. So this is a controversial topic, and also I put the page number for there corresponding, where that question is coming from. So how you treat the missing data. I think that's a very, controversial topic in the social science. And then, have them to answer it. Actually, the answer here is all of the above. I mean, everybody, and so they will probably present whatever answer they put it, because it's a, in the multiple choice question, you are forced to select one answer. But then I will give the credit. Everybody is right. But again, and then they reinforce the idea that this is a very controversial topic. And then another question here. We also talk about, in the research method course, most of it we talk about the quantitative research method. But we have one session also, we teach students about the qualitative methodology. So in that session, you have to kind of overturn everything that you have learned from the survey and quantitative research method. So I would probably throw this question again. Students try to select whatever the best answer. And here, the answer is not here, because none of the above is the answer. So, but then, everybody is wrong if whatever the answer they put it. So, based on that, I will also try to facilitate some dialogue about the difference between the quantitative and qualitative methodology. And again, also, that's more traditional use of website, of iClicker, but I also try to use it to assess the emotional temperature of the class in the classroom. So probably alternative I would probably do that before I use the iClicker was, let's just go around the room and see where we are. So give me like 2 words how you feel. So if people would say, well, I'm nervous and anxious or excited, so they would say whatever. But it kind of takes some time to go around the room, and by the time I think that I guess probably the usage of time is the biggest problem. But then, if I use this, then everybody can see their answer in terms of how they are. I mean, they have to kind of force them to quantify their feeling here. So that's the challenge, but that you could see it. And I would probably do it probably 3 to 4 times in the semester. So like in the beginning, around the midterm, after the midterm, before the final. And then I think the neat thing about it, you can also see the distribution. And sometimes the change of distribution. In my research class, it was started more as a bimodal distribution, so most people who are either not happy or very unhappy or very happy. But then, as the course go along, it became more normal distribution. So it was kind of interesting to see that kind of change together. I think this one also we can participate. So what's the worst crisis? So your choices here is global warming, natural disaster, childhood obesity, and aging. And again, I think I like this kind of question because there's no right or wrong answer, but in a way that I can also see kind of their value, where they kind of consider it as the worst one. And wow, so we have a lot of environmental people here. Got the highest marks here. Oh, I need to hide, yes. Thank you. Yes. So, in my theory course, human behavior and social environment course, I teach them about the life course perspective. So, you talk about different trends and transition, trajectory, and the negative life event. So I would probably use it as, what's the worst negative life event that could happen to us? And then, I would, whatever the audience is, whether they think the natural disaster, if that's the answer, I would probably use more examples of the natural disaster when I lecture about the life course perspective. So, and then I think because there is no right answer for this, we can also have them debate about what's worse. If natural disaster doesn't happen to everybody, but it happens. When it happens, it could be the worst one. But then also, other thing you could probably make a similar argument. So, and then, sometimes when I also, teach them about the health promotion or adolescence, I would probably make a big deal about the childhood obesity, how it is the biggest problem, and, the increasing epidemic in our country. And also, my research is in aging. So, so, when I talk about the aging issues, I would make a big deal about the aging, how it really impacts all of us and how unprepared we are to deal with these challenges. And then, the probably last example I want to go with you is also, I try to, end my lecture in the week 12, so free the last class. So whatever we need to do. So then, I mean, usually I would ask people about, so what would you like to do? But then, some people who have a stronger voice were kind of say, we want to cancel the class, or we want to do whatever. So I think that was I find it really helpful to use the iClicker, even get that kind of opinion. So, how we can best use our last class together. So no one answered to cancel the class. So that was good. So we actually did and there was some combination of answers about, we definitely want to do the potluck party. Everybody can contribute something, to bring something. And then also, some of them, I kind of went ahead and do their assignments, so they want to kind of show up, but they presented, and I would probably build up some bonus point for those who were presenting for their final paper. So we have done it. And then the last one, and also, still, people are still working on their final papers. I will use some of the rest of the time to help them to provide an individual consultation for their paper. So, I mean, what we were trying to actually, show us, to present to you here is also, some of the different usage that we have adopted in the different courses that we're teaching. So I think now we can probably open it up for the audience to have some more discussion about this. Thank you.
Do you want me to just talk a minute about some of the technical aspects? Sure. Okay. Let me just get my little bag of tricks out here. So if you decide you wanted to use iClicker, you would get an instructor kit. And your instructor kit includes a receiver.
Well, we would actually do it separately. You would come
Okay.
to our office, and you would let us know what classroom you teach in. We actually equip the classrooms for you, so you don't even have to bring the receivers. They'll already be in the classroom that you teach.
Okay, perfect. But just, so you know, you would need a receiver, obviously. And the nice thing about iClicker, and again, you probably have this all set up, but just for your reference, is everything that you need to use iClicker comes on this jump drive. So the benefit is, let's say you were going to another university or you were teaching a course, somewhere else. You don't have to download the software on your computer. So you can actually go to the media classroom. Everything is on the jump drive, and I don't know if you allow them to do this, but you can actually take this jump drive and go back to your office, and if you wanted to evaluate the data, the polls, the information that was collected. Also, this is one benefit of the iClicker receiver is whenever they took a poll and you could see how many people had voted, this receiver you could actually see how many people have voted and how they have voted on this little screen here. So that's just a little bit of information about the technical aspect, the hardware. You get a receiver, all the software, and all your poll results get downloaded onto this jump drive. And then you also get 2 instructor remotes, and again, I'm not sure how you do this, but you get 2 instructor remotes, and one of these remotes you can actually go in and designate as an instructor remote, and you can be anywhere in the classroom because this is wireless, and you can actually forward your PowerPoint slides using this remote. So I could be pointing it this way and my PowerPoint slides would get forwarded. You can also use this to start and stop polling, so you can be back in the classroom, and whenever I'm talking in front of a crowd, I tend to move around a lot, so that's another advantage, is you can start and stop polling, and you can also display your results from anywhere in the classroom using an instructor remote that you've designated. Is there anything else?
The actual clickers themselves are in the bookstore. So we have an online form if you're interested in using the clickers, and the students actually purchase the clickers.
This is how they show up in the bookstore. So they're easy to stack on the shelves.
How much are
they? They range. The new ones are $30. Is that right? Or $30?
37, I think.
Yeah, well, they net for $27, so whatever your bookstore markup is.
They're around like in the 37, 38, and then the used ones are, I think, the 30 range. And they're right next to the textbooks, so for your particular class, if you're using clickers, they would be right next to the books for your class, so the students would just grab one. The idea is that the students would use the same clicker all 4 years for all of the courses where the faculty members are using clickers in the classroom. So it's a one-time purchase, sort of like a calculator is.
That's actually an important point, is that they can use them in a number of courses. So if they're taking, a course in the, sorry, what department you were in? Social work. And, then they can go over to biology if they were using them in biology or in math, and they can use the same clicker. An important thing to note is there is no registration fee. So every time, if they take a course in social work, they register the clicker for your course. And then if they are using clickers in their biology course, they could register their same clicker for that particular course. So the clickers could be used in multiple courses.
Can I ask you, how does that registration work? And I'm assuming that means you could use these for attendance, is that right?
Oh, yes.
Yes, so registration, there are a couple different ways you can register, the students can register their clickers. We've integrated with Blackboard Vista, so they can actually just go into Blackboard Vista and register their clickers that way. There's also an in-class registration system where their names just sort of scroll up a screen, and then they punch a series of buttons, and then they're registered for that particular class. So the registration is
And there's a little number on the back of each of the clickers that they would take and register that number.
So if you're interested in trying these out, we do have a set of loaner clickers that we can let you borrow as if you start thinking about if you want to use this technology in your classroom, and we can provide you with the training that you need. But I want to see if anyone else had any other questions for.
Is there any plan to have free response clickers that students can enter 1.623?
Yeah, I don't think so, and I know, especially in math, that's probably.
I've given up on clickers. I used to use them. I just found it too difficult to make distractors, the wrong answers that are popular for multiple choice questions. It's just much too much time.
Yeah, the scientists who developed iClicker, they were actually physicists from the University of Illinois, and their area of research was physics education. So they really spent a lot of time, thinking about how students learn and pedagogy. And one of their issues was the fact that they didn't want students focusing on entering notation. And they wanted students to focus on the pedagogy, on the content. I totally understand, especially from a mathematician's point of view. But again, most of the time, though, if students are answering a question, they still have to, on a piece of paper, kind of work out the answers on paper and then give their response. But from a pedagogical point of view, I don't think that there's plans in the immediate future to allow for numerical entry. Yeah.
Is the technology likely to stay the same so that we won't have different generations of clickers? Like textbooks, they update?
Oh, we do upgrades, but for example, we just had a release recently, and it was just a matter, and not necessarily for the students, it was the software. So it was basically, click here and it'll automatically download the latest version of the software, and you don't have to do anything.
And a student can count on using it for 4 years, most likely, without having.
Yeah, I mean, right now, this is the hardware for students. We are coming out with a web version of iClicker where they could actually use their iPhone or their cell phone, and so that's in beta right now.
How durable are these devices?
Well, I carry this bag around, and I've got some in the bottom of my bag, and I'm constantly flinging it around. So they're really durable, but if you drop it from probably the parking garage where I parked it, it'll probably fall apart. But for the most part, they're pretty durable. We don't get a lot of complaints.
I bet you can't wash them. I know you can't wash your iPod.
Yeah, and if there's a student that has a really good story about what happened to their clicker, we'll work with you on replacement. Yeah.
All the examples I've seen are based on having a PowerPoint presentation with predefined questions. I don't teach that way. I teach very non-linearly. We raise a question ad hoc.
Perfect.
Is there any good way of capturing that kind of style?
Yes, there is. If you click on that little pull-down menu, there's an option that says question on the fly, and you can just write a question in. And
So I need to key it in?
your question?
I need to key it in with my computer?
Well, what you could do is you could have a question title and blah blah blah, and then ask them to answer. Okay, how was your day? Or are you having a good day? A, yes. B, no. And then they could put in their answer without you even typing that. And because iClicker works with any application, and that menu bar floats over any application, and it takes a picture of whatever's on your desktop. And then it'll take the results and download them into the gradebook.
So basically, all I need is enough to remind me what was the general gist of the question.
That's right. That's why I suggested pulling this up so that you're like, oh yeah, that was the question that I asked. But this is an important thing to note, that iClicker works with any application. So if you're using Mathematica and you want to ask a question about it, you pull it up on your screen and you ask them a question, it'll take a snapshot of whatever's on your desktop. And again, because the menu bar floats over any application, that's the beauty of the software. Is you can use it with Word, you can use it with PowerPoint. Yes, that's another thing. You can use it. It is seamless with a Mac. It's beautiful on a Mac. In fact, I have a Mac at home, and in fact, somebody at University of Massachusetts Amherst, they were using a competing iClicker, and she was so frustrated that she tried iClicker, and it's worked beautifully this semester. So I think we told you about all the one other thing that I just wanted to mention, and I don't know if you guys do this, but when the inventors developed iClicker, they did a lot of research in physics education, and one of their areas was peer-to-peer instruction. And one of the things that they do in class, and I've seen this where people have used iClicker in their courses, where they ask a question, and before they show the answer, and they say, okay, talk to your neighbor about why you selected that question. And the learning that goes on is really very powerful in terms of the students talking amongst themselves. It takes a little more time in your course, but again, the learning that really happens is really powerful. So that's another way that you can use clickers, is to foster peer-to-peer collaborative instruction.
Well, thank you very much. And if you're interested in trying out the technology or learning more about it, please feel free to contact eTeaching. Thank you.